Hi, thanks for checking out my channel. My name is Tarsha Wiggins. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and certified alcohol and drug counselor. Our topic today is going to be about worry and how does worry become anxiety for some individuals. Before we do that, as you'll hear me say in every video, these videos are intended to be of educational value, not intended for you to diagnose yourself, run out and treat yourself independently. Please consult your a behavioral health professional for yourself or perhaps a loved one. So with that said, let's jump into our topic today. I wanted to spend some time talking about worry and how worry can become anxiety for some people. I think with everything going on right now, COVID, back to school season, kind of being on the cusp of things, also thinking about how life has just changed and how life will continue to change for many of us as we transition into back to school or maybe working from home through the end of the year, or maybe how we're going to embrace holidays as we go into the holiday season, things like that. So thought it might be great if we just sat down and talked a little bit about the things that maybe you worry about, the things I'm worrying about, but also making sure that we're kind of doing that self-check that our worry is not becoming anxiety. And I think sometimes we can just become so filled and so busy with all the things that we're doing that we might miss some of those things, but because you watch this video, you won't miss it. So let's jump into it. What is worry? With all the technology we have, you can ask Google, you can ask Siri, and you have all that information at your fingertips. So I did a couple of Google searches. I did a couple of different, I shouldn't say Google searches, but read a couple of different definitions about what worry is. And essentially for me, what I took away from that definition is that it talked a little bit about how worry opens a door for one to be consumed with trouble and difficulty. Overall, what worry is, the way I define it, or what the purpose of our conversation, perhaps how we should define worry, is that we have these ruminating thoughts about circumstances or situations or difficulties in our life, and now those thoughts that can be brief oftentimes become long, and they become intrusive sometimes, where that's not your intention to focus on that thought, or these thoughts just pop up throughout the day several times a day. But one of the caveats to the thought or the worry is that at some point there was never a point where the thought or the worry, it lacks a portion of where you start to look for solutions. You start to be critical, and you're not thinking critically perhaps about that thought, in terms of looking for a solution, like how this is something that I'm concerned about, these are some possibilities, these are options. Sometimes we can get so wrapped in the difficult part of it, like the weight of the problem, and not necessarily see some solutions behind it. So that's how I would like us to kind of approach the definition of worry. When we're kind of stuck in that thought itself, and we're in that ruminating thought that, oh, this isn't going to get better, the COVID and going back to school, like I just don't know how I'm going to work from home. I have all these kids, and maybe some individuals are having thoughts of worry where they are particularly concerned about how they're going to pay their rent, or how they're going to be able to maintain food on the table with different changes with work, or maybe the inability to work, or just the ongoing worry about, what if I become COVID positive? What if I contract the virus? So some individuals just can get lost in that worry, and at some point something happens where the worry becomes anxiety. And it's like, well, how does that happen? When does that happen? And I want us to spend a little time talking about that, because there's a couple of things I think that might be helpful for us all to just have on our radar, to make sure maybe some of the things that we're spending some time thinking about, that we don't want those things to become anxiety provoking for us, or those situations or circumstance to generate a feeling of anxiety, and it becomes bigger and larger, and then if left untreated, it can be very debilitating. So One of the things that I think is a red flag or a big indicator right away that the worry is starting to transition into, or perhaps starting to make that transition over to something that can be anxiety provoking, is that there's no thought of it lacks that solution focusedness, if you will. We're not looking for what are some of the possibilities or the avenues of how I can manage or be successful in this area. It's particularly I am stuck in this constant state of worry. I see the problem, I don't see the solution. So that's one indicator. Another indicator I think is one that we should talk about is when we start to think about how that thought changes the way we think and feel. Now, when we talk about the way we think, we talk oftentimes about there's a therapeutic model, cognitive behavioral therapy. What you think is what you believe, and what you believe is what you act out. So if we have all these thoughts, we're thinking a particular way, we're thinking where we see the problem, we don't see the solution, where we're getting ourselves in that place where we're stuck with just the problem. If you keep thinking that, you start to believe it, right? And then that changes how we act those things out. Another way to kind of describe that is that our worry pulls in, or it draws in imagery behind it, or it couples it with it. So you may have a thought or a passive thought, and over time that thought becomes bigger. Now it's a ruminating thought about, I'm so concerned. I'm really concerned about if kids have to go back to school. Maybe I don't feel comfortable sending my child to school. I'm worried about the thought of my child going to school, being around so many people. You get stuck in that thought process, and you see the problem, you're not necessarily seeing solutions, right? But then you start to have imagery behind it, where you can envision your child walking to school perhaps, or maybe you can see all of the horrific things that you've been thinking or you've been consumed with in terms of what your worries are. And when you start to get those two things coupled together, likely what will happen next is that you'll start to have a physiological change, which is the change in your body. And that's often one of the big indicators or symptoms when individuals present for treatment for anxiety, is that they have a thought, they have this, something happens, it's the trigger, they have a thought that they're consumed with, and it causes them to feel something different in their body. And what they feel differently in their body is distressing to the point where it causes dysfunction, or it causes discourse in their daily functioning. AKA the thoughts are so overwhelming, they're so debilitating that I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't think clearly, I feel short with people. So some of those common physiological changes are increased heart rate. Some people feel tension throughout their body, stomach pains. Some individuals have sweating with that increased heart rate. Some people actually will say, I feel anxious, I feel like I need to go, but I'm stuck. The racing, some individuals start to have the racing thoughts, like I have this thought and another thought and another thought, Other things that oftentimes are present in terms of anxiety in the body, or the physiological signs, is sometimes individuals start to feel they can start to feel down, and it's not necessarily they feel down because they feel sad necessarily. It's that because they feel down, they feel so ran down by the ongoing, how fast their brain is moving throughout the day with the thoughts and the ruminating thoughts, that they're not able to sleep. So you start to have that poor sleep cycle, having sleep disturbance, and then because of the poor sleep disturbance and the ongoing ruminating thoughts that's draining, you start to feel low energy, irritable, things like that with people around you. So in essence, what we're talking about today essentially is your worry starting to become anxiety? And if you're starting to have maybe some of these thoughts, that things that once concerned you, maybe something as a parent, maybe as a co-worker, maybe as a spouse, any of us in life, things that we once thought that we had like a concern or worry about, and you find yourself now that worry or those worries, meaning more than one, maybe you got a couple of those things now, it pops up a whole lot more often than you would like it to. Maybe now it's starting to consume your thought process in terms of you think about it, you see it as well. You don't necessarily feel like you feel hopeless, helpless perhaps. Maybe you're also not able to see those solutions or a way out, if you will, in terms of whatever your thought or your worry is. And you have that going on, and now you're starting to feel things in your body. You feel different. You feel this anxiousness. You feel this heaviness. Maybe you just feel like you don't have an appetite anymore. Or maybe you just starting to feel like you have all this tension, tightness in your neck, your chest, sleep quality is low, just different things like that. This is just something to help you kind of think to yourself, am I starting to become anxious? The things that I thought I'm thinking about, the worries that I have, the concerns that maybe I once had, because I'm someone that always is key on words, like, well, I'm not worried, I'm just concerned. Same difference. If you're starting to think or feel what I've described in this video, that might be something that you want to reach out and talk to a behavioral professional about. But again, keep in mind as well that this isn't necessarily something that happens overnight for individuals, but more importantly, you start to feel that decrease in your daily functioning, like the thoughts, maybe the ruminating thoughts, maybe the physiological changes have reached a point now where it's causing distress in your life, where you're not sleeping, you feel low, maybe you're short with people around you, different things like that. So keep that in mind as well. So hope you found this video to be educational today. Maybe something was said that helped you take better care of yourself, maybe take care of someone else in your family or in your community. With all that being said, we are going to get through this. Stay well, stay healthy, stay safe. And again, in every video, I always kind of end with my little PSA that I encourage everyone to reach out. Talk to a behavioral health professional if you're not doing well, if you're not feeling or your greatest, or you just need to check in with someone. We want to reduce the stigma around mental health, okay? You guys take care and see you in the next video.